Do you want to make a pattern from your favourite clothes? The process is called pattern cloning, and you will need a flat surface to work on, large sheets of paper, a straight edge, pen and pencil, scissors or a knife, and a garment you want to clone. I'm working on the floor. Wherever you work, you'll need a surface that is large enough to lay your garment out flat. First, I tape down the sheet of paper I'm going to make the pattern out of. This will keep it in place and totally flat. I'm cloning a t-shirt, but this process would be the same for many simple garments. I'm making the front and back panels. Fold the garment in half. We're making a pattern that you would cut on the fold. If you don't know, this is a common practice with patterns that need to be symmetrical. It means that you fold the fabric in half when cutting out your pattern pieces, giving you a perfectly symmetrical pattern once cut. I'm taking care to make sure that the shoulder seams, where the underarms meet the sleeve, and collar are aligned, as these are the most crucial points. You can see that my garment is longer than the paper I have. This isn't ideal, but I can work around it. When I come to cutting my fabric, I'll just extend these lines, but note this on the pattern with the additional length that you'll have to add, or you will end up with a crop top. With a pencil, so that I don't stain my garment, I outline the accessible edges, the side, shoulder, and fold line. Flipping the top layer out of the way, I carefully fold back the sleeve so I can draw around the curve. I then do the same for the front and back of the collar. I'm making a temporary pattern for the project I'm working on, but if you're making a longer lasting pattern, you could stack 2 sheets of paper, cut out both sheets with the shallower curve, then cut the deeper curve on the sheet you've marked out. You also might want to use heavier card so that the pattern will last longer. With a straight edge and pen, I'm going to finalise the edge of the pattern, freehanding the curves from the sleeve and collar. This outline has no seam allowance. Seam allowance is the extra fabric needed to join all your panels together, and the amount depends on how you plan to stitch your garment. If you know what seam allowance you're going to use, add this by measuring that distance away from all edges that will be seamed and adding an additional outline. I'm not doing this, so keep that in mind when you come to make your pattern, or your final garment will be a little smaller than the original. Before you cut out, note down any relevant information on the pattern, including which part of the garment this is, the direction of the grain of the fabric, whether you have included a seam allowance and how much you have included, where the fold point is, and in my case, that the template is shorter than the actual pattern piece, and how much I should extend by. Now you can cut out your pattern piece. Never use your fabric scissors to do this, as you will dull the blade, making it less effective at cutting fabric. You could also use a knife if you prefer, but you'll need to protect the surface underneath. That's one down. Next is the sleeve. It's a similar process. Tape down your paper, lay out one of the sleeves, mark out the outline of the accessible edges, fold back the sleeve to mark out the curve, and outline with pen. Mark the longest edge as the cut on fold line, then add any pattern notes. Now you can cut out your pattern piece. The t-shirt also has a collar. This will be a rectangle of ribbing slightly shorter than the length of the collar hole. I don't really think it's necessary to make a pattern for this, but if you do want to, use a fabric measuring tape to find the length of the collar around its folded edge and mark a straight line that length. Measure the width of the collar, then double this. Mark a line that width at right angles to the length and join it all up to make a long thin rectangle. T-shirts are good for pattern cloning as they are extremely simple shapes that lie flat. For more complex garments that have side paneling, yokes, pleats and darts, this approach becomes more complicated and less accurate. If there is a complex garment you really want to clone, the best way may be to seam rip the garment into its component parts. But you'll be sacrificing the garment in the process, so it has its downsides too. If you want to see how this pattern was used in a project, watch the Phoenix film. If this was useful, why not subscribe to the channel for more projects and tutorials?